the next 30 minutes. So we're going to talk about nutrition basics for a healthy humanity tonight. So I have some questions for you. Does the body have the capacity to get well?
Yes.
Does it have the capacity to get well all the time?
Pending what we're putting into it.
What about if the tissue's too damaged? There is a thing called a limitation of matter, okay? So if the tissue's too far gone or too damaged, then maybe not always. So we're going to talk about what causes sickness and what causes health. So I'm going to talk about first the triad of health, the three things we need to be healthy. And I have it in the next slide, but I want to ask you guys, what do you think goes on each side of the triangle? There's three things we call a triad of health. What would they be? One's pretty obvious. We're going to talk about it tonight.
Food.
Nutrition.
So nutrition, biochemistry, okay? Is biochemistry important for health? Yeah, okay. What else?
Lifestyle.
Exercise.
Okay, exercise is important. I would say that goes under one of the other ones we're going to talk about. But one is definitely nutrition. What would be the other two? Would structure and neurology be important? Yeah, we're in a chiropractic office, so structure neurological. What would be the third one? Is emotional health important?
Yes.
Can you be healthy and not have good emotional health?
No.
Pretty tough, okay? So these are the three sides of the triangle. Biochemical, spiritual, emotional, structural, neurological. Now, when this triangle is out of balance, that's when people get sick, okay? That's when they get ill, all right? And it can be out of balance in any way. Now, I'm going to just talk about, real quick, we're going to talk about the biochemistry part of this tonight with food. I want to go back to structural neurological. I just want to make a point here that's really important. So when people come into me, especially people who have never been to chiropractor before, I start adjusting and we're turning on the neurological energy from the brain to the body. Okay, so your body only has so much energy that it can work with. Would you agree with that? Okay, so what happens if somebody comes in with a bunch of comorbidities? Are they going to get well as fast? No. So what are comorbidities? Anybody know? When I say that word.
Heart issues.
That would be one.
Cardio ones.
Cardiovascular would be one. What are some other ones?
Diabetes.
Yeah, blood sugar issues, big comorbidity. Yeah, diabetes. What are some other ones?
Nerve damage.
Could be nerve damage, okay.
Hormonal.
Okay. So hormonal. What about high blood pressure? Okay, big comorbidity. What about obesity? Big comorbidity. So if somebody comes in, and let's say they have lower back pain, or they have low back pain and headaches, they want relief for that. If they're coming in with diabetes, obesity, and high blood pressure, do you think they're going to get better faster or slower? Yeah, because your body only has so much energy it can work with, okay? And so once you start turning on that energy, the body decides what it wants to heal first, okay? So it may have another priority than your pain, all right? I just want you to understand that because that's important. It's important for any kind of healing. So we're going to talk about biochemistry today. So if you had anybody ever have a fish tank when they were growing up? Okay. So what happened? Did you ever have fish floating on the top? Yeah, upside down, right. So what was happening?
Something was out of balance.
Fish were dying, right? Okay. So what did that usually mean you needed to do? I mean, let's say assuming that you were feeding the fish, okay? What what did that mean we needed to do?
Clean the tank.
Clean the fish tank, right, that's right. Okay, well, in our culture, in Western civilization, when the fish are dying, we don't clean the fish tank. What do?
Give them a drug.
We medicate the fish. That's exactly right. We don't clean the fish tank, we medicate the fish. So we're going to talk about not doing that tonight, okay? So food is important. It's like a dirty fish tank. What do we do when the fish are dying? Well, we want to clean up the fish tank. Why is food so important? Because food is information. Whenever you eat anything, you're informing your body. You're telling your body something, okay? Now, food is broken down into vitamins, minerals, nutrients, such as amino acids. And if food is not supplying the adequate vitamins and minerals, it actually affects our DNA and the way that our DNA expresses itself. And the outcome is poor health, okay? So our DNA, some of our DNA is hardwired, but a lot of it's very malleable. It turns on and off depending on what we eat and how we take care of ourselves. Now, vitamins, we think of vitamins like pills that you take, right? Okay. But really, vitamins are very, very complex substances that are actually woven into the food. All right. And they're absolutely essential for every metabolic process that we have in our body. Let me give you an example of that. So I had this patient that came in. I did an exam on him today, but he came in, I think last week, and he was telling me about all these symptoms he had. And I said, part of what your problem, I think, is you lack vitamins. He's on a lot of drugs. And so drugs, every time you take a drug, that depletes vitamins and minerals from your body. Every single time you take a pharmaceutical, it depletes vitamins and minerals. So I said, hey, I think part of your problem may be that you have a magnesium deficiency just based on your symptoms. And so I said, I think you need to take I'll give you some magnesium. Rarely do I ever do this on the first visit, give somebody supplements, but he really needed them. And I think you need something else. So I gave it to him. I didn't see him for a week, so I did his exam today. And the first thing he tells me, he looks at me and he goes, all that pain that I had running down the backs of my legs since I've been taking that magnesium, that's gone. Gone. Okay? So what does that, so I asked him, what does that tell you? He said, well, I had a magnesium deficiency. Yeah, that's true. You have a vitamin and mineral deficiency. Magnesium probably wasn't the only one. Okay? Probably a lot more. That was just the most obvious one that was going on with him. So vitamins and minerals, really, really important. So all pharmaceuticals deplete vitamins and minerals from the body. Let's take broad spectrum antibiotics such as amoxicillin. They deplete all the B vitamins, biotin, vitamin C, and vitamin K. Okay? Now, I'm not saying that nobody should ever not take this. Sometimes antibiotics are necessary. I just want you to know what happens when you do take them. Antacids deplete essentially all your minerals. So you take things like Prilosec, Tums, things like that, they deplete your body of minerals, all of them. Your body can't absorb minerals without stomach acid. So just so you understand what's going on. So real food versus processed food. You think there's a difference here?
Yes.
Would everybody agree there's a difference?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
yeah, hopefully you would. Okay. So foods that are processed have vital parts removed. I would say most of the parts removed. And you cannot, if you have a diet that's really high in processed food, you can't fix them with supplements. Now, I'm a huge believer in supplements, believe me. And I generally carry whole food nutrition, which is complex, into the supplement. But if you have a terrible diet, you cannot take enough supplements to fix that. You can't do it, okay? So if you look at 70% of the average American diet is processed food. 60% of the average American diet is ultra-processed food, okay? So ultra-processed food, we're looking at breakfast cereals. I'm not going to ask you to raise your hand on how many eat breakfast cereals, you do, throw them away. None of them are good, okay? Get rid of them. Have steak and eggs for breakfast, a lot healthier, okay? Soft drinks, don't drink them, okay? Or drink them on the 4th of July, and that's it, okay? Frozen dinners, canned soups, Campbell soup, not good, okay? Pizza, chips, boxed dinners, pasta, processed meats, ice cream. All of this stuff is not good for us. You ever, when you go shopping, ever watch what other people put in their carts? Anybody appalled other than me? Like how are these people even have the energy to push their carts around, you know? So processed foods are toxic. They're toxic to normal physiology. So skin tabs around the neck, as well as bronzing patches on the face and the neck, are really common in patients that have a toxic diet. Now, part of that's the aging process, but I see people that are younger and younger with this bronzing around their neck, you know, and I try and tell them, you know, are you eating okay? What are you know, and some of them just don't want to face the fact there's not eating a very healthy diet. Here's a study published in JAMA Internal Medicine. They found a 10% increase in the consumption of ultra-processed foods resulted in a 15% increase in mortality. Pretty stunning, I think. Now, I saw this interesting YouTube video this morning. You know who just got appointed Surgeon General? Anybody know? Who?
JFK. I mean, not JFK, sorry, but
Casey
Kennedy.
Casey Means.
Oh,
Okay.
Casey. Oh.
Yeah, Casey Means, yeah.
Oh, I'm thinking of the health.
Yeah, Surgeon General.
Surgeon General,
Casey
yes,
Means,
sorry,
okay.
yeah.
So there's a lot of controversy behind that pick, and I won't get into that. But I saw her on a YouTube video this morning, and if you've never watched her interview with Tucker Carlson, you need to watch it. It's stunning. It's powerful. And she released a book a year ago, last April. I bought it, read it. It's in my library. Very, very good book. But she even said this. I heard her say this is a 15% or 18% increase in mortality. That's the figure that she quoted that I heard her quote this morning. So I don't know where she got that, but that's pretty interesting. The British Medical Journal showed that if the proportion of ultra-processed food in the diet increased by 10%, then the number of cancers detected increased by 12%. So you increase your ultra-processed foods by 10%, cancer goes up by 12%. So you decrease that, you want to decrease your chances for cancer, decrease the amount of ultra-processed food you're eating. Now, I'll be honest with you, I don't have 100% pure whole food diet. I don't, okay? I do eat some processed food. You know, I don't eat very much of it, but I eat some. So I'm not gonna stand up here and pretend like I have this ultra perfect diet, because I don't. But I would say that probably maybe 90% of what I eat is whole food, 85, 90%. There's 10% in there that's probably not. But if you can get it up close to that, you're doing pretty well. Refined sugar, that's the bane of our culture. Nearly 7 out of 10 Americans being overweight and 1 in 4 being affected with diabetes and prediabetes, a heavily processed standard American diet is in need of an overhaul. So sugar is a pretty big deal. Research has shown that as much as 40% of all of our healthcare expenditures in this country are because of the overconsumption of sugar. Overconsumption. I'm not talking about just eating small amounts, okay? We all do that. Let's just be honest about it, okay? But we're talking about the overconsumption of sugar. More than $1 trillion each year is spent on treating sugar and junk food related diseases, which runs a gamut from obesity and diabetes to heart disease and cancer. I would bet that it's higher than this, probably double that at least. But that's the number that I have. Okay, sugar feeds cancer cells, and here's what we know that sugar feeds is cancers of these areas. It just, sugar drains your antibodies, it drains your it lowers your white cell count. It has so many bad things to the body. And like I said, sugar should, eating sugar should be like just an occasional thing. It shouldn't be like a regular, you don't need dessert for breakfast, okay? A refined sugar and grains also do the following. They raise insulin levels. Insulin increases inflammation. So if you want to lower your levels of inflammation, find out what your insulin levels are, and if they're above 5, get them down. In men, insulin hastens the conversion of testosterone to estrogen, increasing weight gain, lowering energy and sex drive, and contributing to depression. So we all know about the low T clinics, right? Okay. If you could get men just eating a healthy diet and exercising, you wouldn't need those clinics, okay? You wouldn't need them at all. Proper fats are really important. So our brain is made of fat. Anybody know that? Everybody know that? Yeah. It's a big glob of fat, basically, with blood vessels running through it, things like that. So do you think the kind of fat in our brain that we have in our brain might be important? Okay. So are there different kinds of fat?
Yes.
Okay. So what fats are important?
Olive oil.
Olive oil, yeah. Omega-9s.
Omegas.
Yeah. What else?
Fish oil, eating fish or.
Omega-3s.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Now we do need some omega-6s. The problem is we get way too many omega-6s, and that throws an imbalance into our system. We also need this. 12% of our brain is cholesterol. Okay, really important to understand that. Cholesterol is a very important part of our brain. So when we have these lower cholesterol lowering drugs and they lower our cholesterol too much, that can actually affect brain function, cognition, memory, mood, things like that. Let's see. Okay, so we just talked about the essential fats. So this is one of the reasons that processed food is so bad for us. Everybody here heard of trans fats, hydrogenated fats? Okay, yeah, I figured you did. When that starts getting into our cells cannot work right. They don't function properly. All disease starts at the level of the cell. So if we're eating like a French fry diet or a lot of processed food because they all have this in it, then that gets into our cells, and that just completely changes how a cell can function, and it really down-regulates the cell's ability to be healthy. So this is one of the biggest causes of inflammation in our country. The omega-6, omega-3 fat ratio. The only oils that should really be used for cooking are coconut oil, avocado oil, and olive oil. Occasionally in our house we use a little sesame seed oil occasionally. That's it. And we don't use that very often. Does anybody use any other oils that they would deem healthy other than this?
Grapeseed.
Grapeseed? Okay.
Animal fat.
Yeah, animal fats. Okay, yeah. Okay, so we just talked about how trans fats affect the brain. They can be, too many trans fats can be associated with depression. And this is from the Journal of Affective Disorders in 2019. Avocado oil and olive oil, great oils. So let's just talk about diets. There's lots of different diets out there. So I'm just going to say this. After being in practice for 4 decades, not everybody tolerates the same diet. Would you agree? Okay. So I've actually seen patients, not very many, but I've seen some patients that can only tolerate a high carbohydrate diet. You put them on a carnivore diet, they crash. You put them on this diet, they crash. Now, I don't know what it is about their genetics, but I've seen people like that. They cannot do a high-fat, high-protein diet. They need lots of carbohydrates. Most people, I would say, do pretty well on this diet. okay? Is there anybody in here that doesn't do well on like something like this? Everybody, yeah, most people will. But there's some people that don't. Some people don't do well on the carnivore diet. And so some people do really well on that diet. So this is basically what we eat at our house at home, is the Mediterranean diet. Fermented foods. How many of you eat fermented foods? Everybody? Some do, okay. We make our own kombucha tea at home. Non-sweetened yogurt is pretty good. Sauerkraut is really, really a good food. It's very high in whole food complex vitamin C and glutamine, which heals your gut. Kimchi is fermented cabbage, or fermented.
Mostly cabbage.
Yeah, is it cabbage? Okay, I was saying sauerkraut is too, isn't it? Yeah. Okay.
Kimchi's different though.
It's
Yeah,
got extra spices.
It's a little different.
It was in South Korea for a year. There was a lot of kimchi in South Korea.
Yeah. So we eat some kimchi at our house. It's more my wife that eats it than I do, but it is really good for you. Okay, so here's some potential benefits of kombucha tea. Because it has so many microorganisms, really good commensal bacteria, it tends to eliminate pathogenic microorganisms in your system, may contribute to optimal gut microflora, have liver protective effects, and may protect against prostate cancer. So one of my favorite medical doctor nutrition guys is a guy by the name of Robert Lustig. Has anybody heard of him? Okay, yeah, you have. Okay. His mantra is this. He says everything that I teach can be boiled down to this. Feed your gut, protect your liver. That's what he says. Feed your gut, protect your liver. So when you eat fermented foods, you're feeding your gut. When you avoid sugar and trans fats, you're protecting your liver. Okay? So what constitutes a superfood? Okay? There's all these lists of superfoods, and I've got one here. You can find other ones, but readily available, enhance longevity, and have benefits backed by peer-reviewed scientific studies. So here's one list. I don't eat everything on there, but I eat most of what's on there. Okay? This is a pretty good list, I would say. Anybody have any ones that they would add that they've seen on other lists? Nobody.
Well, sauerkraut, as you showed before, that's usually.
Yeah, that'd be down here. Fermented vegetables. Yeah.
Blueberries.
What?
Blueberries.
Blueberries. Yeah. That would probably be under berries,
Blueberries,
but yeah,
blackberries.
blueberries. Blueberries are really good. Yeah, I would agree with that. Okay. So here's just a little thing on exercise. This was in the Neurobiology of Disease in June 2012. So if there's probably nothing that you can do that can change your body faster than physical exercise. If they could put it into a pill, you get rich, okay? So it enhances learning and memory. It really helps reset your brain. It counteracts age. It helps facilitate brain function. And it says the risk of Alzheimer's disease is inversely correlated to the levels of daily exercise, even with walking as little as 1 mile a day. Exercise is super important, okay? And I would say this, probably exercise is one of the main barriers to depression and anxiety. I mean, if you exercise regularly, people that I know that exercise regularly, that really do it, most of those people don't have a lot of anxiety and depression because exercise tends to fix that. Here's some useful tests to understand nutrition and dietary needs and disease, some of the tests that I do. One of my favorite ones is a blood test called fasting insulin. if I were just to have only one test that I could do, one blood test, and that was it, it would be insulin. That test will tell me more about somebody's health than just about anything else. Now, there's things it doesn't tell me, but it's a really good test. High sensitive C-reactive protein indicates inflammation. So if that's high, your body's inflamed. Vitamin D, another great test, modulates over 2,700 genes. It's important for inflammation, immunity, brain function, and a lot of other health issues. I just did blood work on a woman not too long ago. That was about 3 or 4 weeks ago. She had a vitamin D, normal range, optimal range of vitamin D should be about 40 to 70. Her vitamin D, I think, was 8. Do you think she felt good? No. She did not feel good at all. Now, she had some other issues too. But vitamin D of 8, when you get in the single digits, man, you just need to get out in the sun. That's really low, okay? And your body can't work right with a vitamin D of 8. Micronutrient testing. This is a great test if you want to just look at what's your status of B vitamins, minerals, fatty acids. Wheat Zoomer is a test that I really like, the best test I've ever seen for intestinal permeability, leaky gut, and wheat and gluten sensitivity. Hair mineral analysis I don't do nearly as much anymore. Great test for, it's a pretty reasonably priced test for toxic metals, mineral status, adrenal, thyroid, and carbohydrate metabolism. It's a pretty good test. I don't do it a lot, but it's not bad. Yeah, and you don't have to stick people to do it. You just cut some hair off. So people like that. So any questions about anything I've gone over tonight? Anybody? Yes.
The hair test, doesn't it, like, as your hair grows out, it tells you more of a history? Is there like a length of the hair that you try to get so that it gives you like an idea of a more recent history as opposed to a longer history on a patient?
Actually, we try and get it right back here on the back of the neck.
Okay.
Yeah. And, and we want to get hair that hasn't been dyed. That will really alter the test. So, we take it from the back of the neck. And I usually have had Carmen do it because when I did it, it didn't always turn out so well for the patient. So I have Carmen do it. But yeah, hair tests they can be good. Okay, I don't do a lot of them, but they can be valuable. Yes. I like urine tests better for toxicity now. I think you get a much broader range. And I'm not going to talk about that test tonight, but I will when I do my toxicity talk. It's a really, really good test. Anybody else? Oh, okay. Must have been pretty clear then. Hopefully it was.
Can I
Yes.
get a copy of your thing?
My slides?
Yeah.
Leave me your email address. I'll send them to you.
Okay.
Yeah, you bet. And then you can have people over for ice cream. Yes.
So when you eat out or you eat at family gatherings and you know you're eating, like I know I'm eating too many of the omega-6s, the bad fats. Will the omega-3s help offset some of that?
If you're,
I mean, as long as you're eating, taking an omega-3 every day, or
they will. You can't eat perfect all the time.
no,
Especially in our culture.
right.
So I look at it like this. I'm going to my aunt's funeral on Saturday, and funeral food is that's kind of what kills people. You got everybody's going to die earlier eating this food. So I don't know what they're going to serve there. Hopefully it'll be healthy, but yeah, you got to be careful.
Good luck.
Yeah, and I've gone to funerals where I didn't eat anything because I thought I'm not eating it. Can't do it. So anyway, so my thing is this: most of you know people that are suffering, that have health issues that aren't getting well, and I would just encourage you to have them at least come to one of my talks, because this doesn't cost them anything, or just come to my office and talk to me. There's so many people out there that are suffering, and a good example is this gentleman that I was talking about earlier with the magnesium deficiency. I mean, he had never done anything natural in his life. He's 62 years old, and he just kept going to his physicians. They gave more drugs, more procedures, more drugs, more procedures, and he comes into me, and I'm 71, he's 62, and he's falling apart, and he knows it. And he goes, "You got to do something for me, because I feel like they put me on a shelf and they're just giving me pharmaceuticals." And that's exactly what happens. And so many people in our culture follow that pattern where they just, it's another surgery, another drug, another surgery. Those people generally never ever get better. They just get worse over time. And we can break that pattern here. And most of you know people like that, and we want to help those people break that pattern so they can become healthy again. Because when you think about it, we have the best system in the world for emergency care. I don't think you're going to find any country in the world that does trauma care better than we do. But if somebody goes out and they're in a car accident, they get broken up, and they go in the hospital, they're in the hospital for a few weeks, they get released, are they healthy necessarily? No, they're just not sick enough to be in the hospital, okay? So we want to get people healthy here. We want to bring people back to as much health as we can, okay? We don't want to just put them on this path of more drugs and more procedures. And so most of you know people like that. I want you to just think about that and have them just call my office or come to one of my talks. These are free. Now, the next talk I'm going to do, we have up there the importance of the nervous system in health and disease. We're not going to do that talk that night. What I'm going to do is a new talk called Talking Back to Ozempic. Okay? That's what we're going to do. So on Ozempic, I'm going to talk about that particular drug, that class of drugs, what it does, and what are some natural things that do some of the same things that Ozempic does. So we're going to talk about that night. Probably going to have a lot of people here, but that's okay. So I'm also going to do that talk the 24th at Natural Grocers at 2 o'clock. So if you can't come in 2 weeks, you can come to that talk at Natural Grocers at 2 o'clock. That's on Saturday the 24th. So anybody have any other questions? Yes, Terry.
Heavy metals or other toxicities you get, is there something you can eat that'll help flush those out through your system?
Yeah, that's a great question. I can tell you what they are. Like what you can eat, like broccoli, cauliflower, kale, all your cruciferous, Acacia type vegetables. Those are the detoxifiers. Bitter melon, anything that's bitter is good for you. Isn't that a shame? Anything that's sweet is bad for you. I mean, what a bad trick that's been played on us, you know. So like.
I saw dark chocolate on one of the lists. Is it considered bitter, or is that?
Well, yeah, dark chocolate's pretty good for you, but you got to watch the sugar content in that. But it is good for you. Yeah, it is on the list. So, but try and eat a lot of broccoli and cauliflower and kale. Brussels sprouts, really good for you. So things like that really give your body, they really up your body's ability to detoxify those types of foods. And I try and eat them a lot. Okay, I think we're good.
So my friend sent me tonight
Yeah.
really complex issues.
Uh-huh.
So I don't know if I could say Kim Wagner.
Yeah, Kim. Yeah.
So.
Yeah, welcome. Yeah, thanks for coming tonight.